Hey, so it's been a while since I've made like a Brawl video, and I saw this video going around Super Smash Bros. Brawl, not as bad as you think. And I thought it would be kind of fun to put my thoughts into it. Uh, I watched like the first like minute or two of this video
Because his
already,
laser
and
has
I
very
was
low end
just
lag.
thinking like, oh, this guy seemed like he really knew what he was talking about. So I wanted to kind of put my spin on it as I watched it. So yeah, I watched the first minute or two of the video, but I haven't watched much else of it.
Because his laser has very low end lag, and his jab comes out extremely quick. I believe it's like frame 2 or 3. So you can kind of check people down, force them back on the ground, then force like 50-50s after.
If you're even somewhat acquainted with the competitive Smash Brothers scene, you may have heard the claim that Brawl was the worst of the Smash games competitively, with reasons given being random tripping, campy gameplay, floaty physics, poor character balance, and the ability to cancel hit stun almost immediately after taking any hit.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what most people say about Brawl, like when they think about like why why it's like not a great game in their opinion. Um, so people always cite like this guy just said, random tripping, um, and like character balance are like the ones I have the biggest problem with. Now a competitive brawl has been playing like no tripping for a while, so we don't really have to deal with that anymore. Yeah, character balance kind of sucks. I feel like we should have some surgical rules put in place to kind of balance out the tippy top characters, namely Ice Climbers, Meta Knight, right? Just to kind of throw in, or just some more high tier characters can like actually compete at the top level, so you don't just see like the same two characters doing really well at the top level. And then so hopefully it's more like melee where it's like the top like 7 to 8 characters with some exceptions. Shoutouts to Amsa and Junebug for doing super well with what used to be considered mid-tier characters. Well, DK is still probably considered mid-tier. But you get the point, right? I think it'd be very healthy for the game to have more than just two characters at the the uh, top of the meta, and hopefully balance that out a little bit more. Um, I don't really have a problem too much of a problem with the hit stun mechanic. So a lot of people say, oh, there are no combos in Brawl. Obviously, there are some combos in Brawl, even more outside of chain grabs and whatnot. Um, there are definitely some combos in Brawl, but it's also like way more nuanced than that because you have to like you get put in a situation where you like your fastest way to get out of the combos to spam air dodge, right? Um, so you use air dodge, but air dodge can be like kind of easily trapped a lot of the times, and so like where you have like no options really. So in a way, like I know it's not like a true like hit stun combo, but like I mean at the end of the day, like if you hit the opponent and their only options to air dodge, which you can also cover, I mean like I feel like it's still effectively a combo. It just puts another layer on the attacker that they have to deal with. So yeah, it's my take on that part.
While these reasons are not unfounded, and many of these are legitimate
Yeah, I
issues,
mean, if you
quite
don't
a
like
lot
those
of nuance
issues
is
with the
left
game,
out of
like
the
that's fine. You
discussion.
don't have to like
Excluding
enjoy
Smash
playing
64
Brawl.
perhaps, Super
It's not for
Smash Bros.
everyone. That's
Brawl
fair to
is the
say.
most poorly understood title in the series. What I find unfair is that such discussions tend to be so one sidedly negative that it
Yeah,
leaves
and
you
that's also
thinking Brawl
something
is
I
that
thought
one
was a really
Smash
good thing to
game with
say.
few, if
Like, I
any,
guess
redeeming
it's kind of
qualities.
weird to me
I
because
will deal with
I
the low
like grew up playing Brawl, but it's kind of still foreign to me. Like, so many people like don't understand like what high level or top level Brawl play is. I don't know if it's like the general Smash community as a whole or just like random Reddit posts that really like cement that feeling for me. Because if people just say like, "Oh, Midnight's like just Midnight on Ice Climbers and no combos, lol, you just air dodge out of everything," like they obviously have no idea what like top level Brawl is, how it's played. Like I said, like you can trap air dodges, and all that stuff. So
hanging fruit first, random tripping. Any character has a 1% chance of tripping during the start of their dash animation. The most commonly cited issue people have with Brawl, and it is indeed a stupid mechanic that even a casual player would
Yeah,
find
no, I
annoying,
don't think like
but
anyone
contrary
likes
to what
tripping
some Reddit
like at all.
commenters would have you think, it rarely
The
had an
only positive thing about tripping is that it does nerf ice climbers, um, because there's two of them. So yeah, like there's a 1% chance that your character can trip, but in ice climbers case, there's like two characters on the screen, so the chances that one of them trips is uh, at any given moment is double the chance of any other character effectively. And you can really take advantage of that and like break Ice Climbers neutral, because Ice Climbers has a really strong neutral game, and like if you can break through and like separate them, that's a good chance. Sometimes, a lot of times that you can just kill Nana outright. So it does kind of nerf Ice Climbers, but it's not like huge in my opinion. It's it's uh it's not usually going to make or break matchups. And yeah, tripping
impact on
like
gameplay. There is a further
it played
misconception
so
related
little of a part in your game plan. Like no one like I feel like I've heard people say, "Oh, Brawl players they chose not to dash because there was a chance that they might trip." Like I don't know anyone who's ever like thought that at all. Um I don't know, maybe people do. I certainly don't. And I play Diddy, and Diddy stays on the ground more often than most characters. Like the 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 chance that you trip, like is just so not as impactful. Like that, it's not really worth considering into your like putting into your game plan, unless it's like you're spamming like dash dancing, which isn't like the greatest thing in Brawl anyway. Like okay, so maybe people would spam dash dancing a little bit more than they do with if there's no tripping, but like it's not going to be a huge amount.
to random tripping that it disincentivized dashing and running, giving way to a very campy meta where people would walk and jump in favor of moving quickly across the ground. All because of something that rarely happened and you could go entire matches without seeing. The truth is, in Brawl, people preferred walking because running limited your options too much.
Yeah,
When your
pretty much
character is
exactly what I
running,
was
your
gonna say.
actions are
This
restricted
is
to
like where I
jump,
got up to
dash
first
attack,
time. I
dash
really
grab,
skipped
up
past
smash,
this,
and
so.
special attacks, along with shielding. Attempting to turn around in the middle of a run leads to a laggy turnaround animation, and your character has to skid before coming to a complete stop. Your character loses access to their faster, safer tilt attacks and jab. As such, people tended to run only when they were chasing someone in their disadvantaged state, trying to intercept a landing. Now that we've dealt with
So what
random
he's
tripping,
yeah,
it's
I mean, he covered it pretty well. But if you didn't understand it, he's just saying like when you walk, you can still use your smash attacks, you can still use your tilts. Um, when you initial dash, you're locked out of shield, and you can't do that. Or when you if you just walk, you have access to your shield like at all times. So, uh, walking is like good outside of just besides the fact that you might trip. Plus walk speeds in general I think are better in Brawl compared to a lot of other Smash games. I'm not 100% sure on that, but like Marth has like I think the best like walk speed
time
or
to
very
move
very
to the more
or a very
complicated
best like
subject.
initial
The
walk speed
game's
or
combo
something. Very
system,
very good.
character balancing, and neutral gameplay. Brawl introduced the much maligned hit stun cancelling mechanic that has gone on to be featured in its sequels, if in a much weaker form. There are two animations that a character can be sent into when being hit. The first is the low knockback animation, for moves that deal fewer than 80 units of
So you're saying like
knockback.
non-tumble hit stun right here. So non-tumble hit stun.
For the
This is like where
character being
most of Brawl's combos come into play. So at low percent, so you get hit with like a weaker move. For example, like Diddy's down tilt, you're not going to be put into tumble hit stun until higher percent. So
hit,
um,
this is the
like non-tumble hit stun, you can still easily combo out of because still has a lot of hit stun.
worst kind of hit stun animation, as there is no way to cancel hit stun and is commonly taken advantage of for low percent guaranteed combos and chain throws, such as Sheik's forward tilt and Falco's down throw. On the whole, there is very little that your character can do in this animation other than take the next blow. The next animation is the tumble
So you can like
animation.
smash DI if it's not like a grab. You can smash DI stuff like Sheik's F tilt. Um, but yeah, Sheik's F tilt, by the way, just works out really well. Well, it works really well on all the casts, but it only really locks like the fast followers like Wolf, Fox, Falco, some others.
That occurs upon taking more than 80 units of knockback. This is where the mechanic of
So
hit stun
also,
cancelling
he's
comes.
probably going to mention next that like tumble hit stun. Um, and so tumble hit stun, the way it works in Brawl is that this is different from my ultimate, and I think Smash 4 too. It's been a while since I played Smash 4, but I'm pretty sure this is also how it, like Smash 4 and Ultimate work very similarly. But in Brawl, you can the order in which you can quote unquote cancel your hit stun is like there's a priority order or a order that you can do first. So you can air dodge first before you can do any other action. You can air dodge, and then you can attack, and then you can jump and special. I believe are the same. An item throw would get thrown in with attack also. So that's why air dodge is also like out of hit stun is seen as so good of an option because you can air dodge before any of those other options. So but that also kind of makes it predictable of what you're going to do out of hit stun. So like I said, like if you're getting comboed, you're going to want to air dodge because it's the first thing that you have access to, right? So, and if the opponent knows that, they're like, oh, he might air dodge here. Let me go ahead and set up for an air dodge or to cover the air dodge also. It's also why Meta Knight's super
After
good because
only
his
13
attacks are
frames of
super
tumble
fast
hit
and can
stun,
cover
a
like air
character
dodge
can
very
air
easily.
dodge, and after 26 frames they can attack, or jump. This is regardless of how much knockback has been taken. The window remains stable at 13 and 26 frames. Well, I lied, there's
Yeah,
more
so
than two animations.
he's going super in depth
There
in the
is a
frames
third
added too, which
animation
is
known
really
as
cool.
reeling, which while visibly different to tumble, is functionally the same regarding hit stun. And if you're
Yeah, that was
curious,
in Smash 4. That was like the random thing. Like when you get hit into like low knockback, there's a chance that you might not be able to tech out of that reeling or that you can't tech out of that animation. So, but it was like a 25% chance to get put in the animation or something like that. If you guys play Smash 4, you might remember that. That's a
for
terrible
some
mechanic.
time
That
during the
affected
sequel
gameplay
Smash
way
4's
more than tripping did, by the way.
life, it was thought that hit stun cancelling was removed. In reality, it still does exist, except the window for dodging and attacking was shifted to 40 and 46 frames respectively, with the window shifting later at higher knockback values. The system is still present in this form in Ultimate. Anyway, the ramifications of Brawl's hit stun cancelling are obvious. Guaranteed combos are effectively removed beyond low percentages. Characters like Captain Falcon and Ganondorf, who previously relied on chaining high knockback moves together, are most adversely affected. But to say that Brawl lacks a combo system, or perhaps more accurately a follow-up system, or punish game is inaccurate. There is much more
Yeah,
nuance
very
here.
inaccurate.
For one, air dodging is risky. Characters suffer noticeable ending lag on their air dodges that can be punished, especially by
Yeah,
characters with
so
far
I'm glad he's really talking about like this guy. Sounds like he really knows his stuff. In Smash 4, air dodge was like super fast. Like it seemed like as quick as like a spot dodge. But in Brawl, if you air dodge in the air, like you're trapped in that animation forever, and it makes it really easy to set up. Um, but you can air dodge into the ground, and it has very little end lag. So when you want, or when you can, you want to air dodge to the ground. But when you get put super high in the air, and since Brawl is like floatier than most other games, you end up like being trapped in the air for a lot longer, and that's when people can cover your air dodge really well.
reaching hitboxes that last for a long time, and a lot of the viable characters have those. The alternative is to wait to attack on frame 26, but not every character has access to fast aerial options to break out of the situation, especially a fast-hitting aerial that hits below them where the opponent will normally be. Even characters with fast aerials are at risk of getting their move blocked. assuming the interaction is taking place near to the ground, after which they can get punished by a grab or other out of shield option, basically resetting the situation and allowing you to go for another follow-up. Remember, shields are strong in this game, and we will get back to them in the neutral section. The advantaged
Yeah,
player
it's very
doesn't
true. Shields are very strong in Brawl. I wonder if you'll go into this though. So like frame data, if you look at frame data, a lot of things are very unsafe on Shield. Like something might be like minus whatever on Shield, right? And like you can in Brawl, there's no like Shield grab penalty frame data wise, like there is an ultimate. So let's say you have a frame 6 Shield grab, or frame 6 grab, you can just use that out of shield, and it will be like frame 6, so minus out of whatever shield stun that you have. There's no shield penalty, or trying to grab out of shield penalty like there is an ultimate. Um, but to make things safe on shield and brawl, that's when like spacing is really important. So for one, spacing, and also brawl, there's way more shield pushback in brawl, like way more compared to other Smash games. So when you hit someone's shield, they get sent further away. Um, it is character dependent. Like Luigi, for example, has the lowest traction in the game, so he will get sent flying farther when you hit his shield. So that also plays a part. And the stronger the move, the more you get pushed back on. So why smash attacks can be kind of safe in Brawl, because you smash attack their shield and they get sent flying back, even though smash attacks are laggier. But yeah, I mean, that also plays a part in spacing. So, I mean, when you factor in spacing and shield pushback, a lot of moves end up being really safe in Brawl anyway.
even have to block. They can
See,
use
like
their
right
own
there,
attacks
you
to
can see
beat
how far the Marth went flying. So C4 was like right here, and he went flying off stage when he shielded it because there's so much shield pushback.
out the disadvantaged player's aerial. And most of the viable characters do have aerials or tilts that are well suited to beating out other hitboxes. Examples are Falco's back aerial, Snake's up tilt, Marth's forward aerial. The last option for the defender is to jump, which is the most likely to avoid the next attack. But now you have merely reset the situation. Only this time you are without a jump and liable to getting killed if your character has a bad recovery and gets knocked off stage. Even when moves send a character too far to immediately punish their defensive options, there is still a chance to punish their landing options. Dash attacks are generally useful here, as they start quickly, have good hitboxes, and cover a lot of distance.
Yeah, a lot
While
of dash
aerial
attacks like linger
attacks are
decently, so
also
they
useful.
do a pretty decent job covering air dodge into stage. Depends on the character, obviously, but like moves that linger will punish people air dodging to stage pretty well.
Because unless you are playing Snake, top tier characters have low landing lag on their aerials with generous auto cancel windows.
Yeah, auto canceling
Which
was very big in Brawl. A lot of moves definitely had like big auto cancel windows.
is something that can't be said about the sequel Smash 4, where landing lag was
That's what I
increased
really
across the
liked about
board.
Brawl compared to Smash 4 specifically. The auto cancel windows, everything made it seemed like everything flowed really well. And that's also why, I mean, a lot of people don't like air dodge into the ground, like how it has very little in lag, but I kind of like that just because I feel like it makes it easier to transition from air to ground and ground to air, and things just flow like way nicer, I would say. So it makes it not feel as clunky. Like Smash 4 felt very clunky to me. Ultimate a little bit too, but Ultimate just, I feel like Ultimate just doesn't have a lot of end lag rather than auto cancel windows, so.
Then auto cancel frames were made useless, excluding a few specific instances. A primer for those of you who may not be familiar with the game or need to refresh their memory. Every aerial attack features a window after the hitbox ends. During the move's recovery frames or ending lag, where the move will incur no landing lag other than the normal landing lag if the character hits the ground. Diddy Kong's forward air, for example, a staple move in his playstyle. This attack
Yep.
would normally
I love Diddy's forward air in this game. It has less range than Smash 4, but it has like way more base knockback. Uh, I love this move.
Incur a
Honestly, it's
hefty
very
30
very
frame
meaty hitbox
landing
and decently disjointed too. So
lag penalty, which is more than enough time for him to be punished with a plethora.
see, that's the thing. Also, he's saying more, but it also depends on spacing. Diddy's forward air was really good because it has good base knockback. It can push the opponent, decently far. So that's when spacing comes into play. You space Diddy's forward air, it's kind of hard to punish. Also, I think some character, if they try to shield grab it right after because of that laying down animation, it's happening right before this. Um, a lot of grabs will go over it. Not a lot of grabs, but some characters who have higher up grabs will go over it, so you can kind of low profile
Of
it.
moves. However, starting on frame 26, the move's auto-cancel window begins and it won't incur any landing lag. His normal landing animation will play, allowing him to act much faster. Every aerial has its own specific timings, and one of the first steps to mastering your chosen
Diddy works the same way also in other Smash games. Like he has that pretty solid auto cancel window on his forward air. So this is nothing exclusive to Brawl right here for Diddy.
character is to learn to utilize their auto cancels, though the mechanic is actually a bit more intuitive than that, as generally speaking
That's
the
true.
auto cancel
A lot of
windows make
things in
visual sense,
Brawl,
as the character has very clear
like animation wise, I feel like when the move ends makes sense compared to Ultimate.
clearly finished their attack animation.
Oops.
It would be weird if Diddy landed on, say, frame 30 or 33 of his
It's something
forward
I
air
haven't really ever
after he has
considered,
clearly
but now that he
retracted his
said it like
legs
that,
and gone
makes a
into
lot of
his
sense.
normal falling animation, and he still incurred the full 30 frames of landing lag. Auto-canceling is one reason Brawl's slower falling speeds actually help counterintuitively to speed up the gameplay, at least compared to its sequel Smash 4. Characters have more control of their aerial drift, and therefore a capacity to
very
mix
true.
up the timings of their aerial attacks.
You can
While
move,
auto-canceling is indeed present
in Brawl compared to Smash 4, I think, with a lot of characters. It also doesn't help with the way the C stick works when you C stick aerials. I think particularly with Smash Stick, but also I think a little bit with Tilt Stick, how you kind of get locked into your drift.
in every Smash game, the technique is most prominent in Brawl. It's a pretty important aspect of the metagame and one that we will revisit a few times in the video. For now though, suffice to say Brawl's characters on the whole have much better frame data than they did have in Smash 4. Brawl gave you more options to intercept landings than Smash 4, where you were mostly limited to either dash attack or blocking. Running into a short hop back aerial was a really good option in Brawl. It would stuff out the defender's move if they chose to attack, and if they chose to land and block, the auto-cancel frames and low landing lag meant you could throw out another fast hitbox to stuff out their grab. Now, in Brawl, of course, the shielding player could just keep blocking or roll to get out of pressure, but I don't count that as a flaw in the design. That's just the nature of the guessing game.
Is not the best
Good
option in
coverage
Brawl.
options
save
simply
for,
improve.
Meta Knight forward roll. Rolling can be very predictable when you get locked in shield, because jump squat is not universally 3 frames like it is in Ultimate. When someone's in shield, you kind of understand they only have a set amount of options. I mean, this is true for other Smash games too, but I feel like it's more for Brawl. Okay, this person is probably not going to jump out of shield, depending on what you're hitting them with. So they're going to be locked into roll away or roll in or spot dodge, and that's when you can kind of start covering all those options. And a lot of times one of those options would be very bad to do traditionally, and so you kind of understand okay, the quote-unquote best option is to roll away here, so I'm going to cover roll away. So think I don't know, Snake holding a grenade, for example. Sometimes it kind of forces him to move. So because he doesn't want to be in range of his own grenade hit, so he might roll away or roll away or roll in. So and you can kind of cover those options.
Your ability to follow up. They don't make things guaranteed, unless you are Meta Knight. But anyway. For the longest time, I used to think that Smash 4's follow-up system was better. purely because the later hit stun cancel led to more guaranteed combos at a higher percentage than were possible in Brawl. But Smash
Yeah, okay,
4
so I know he's following this, but yeah, like I feel like this is such like kind of like a almost like a casual take. Like I feel like there's a group of Smash players. A lot of these is like would go on to become like Reddit people. Um, but you know, like you have like those Smash players that like they think they're kind of competitively or they're playing competitive. I'm thinking like you like think like college dorm Smash players. They're like not playing like free for all or anything. They're like 1v1 FD only. But like everyone knows like in Smash like competitive players know like FD only is like that would be terrible, right? Um like no stage diversity at all. And I don't need like wacky stages, but like no Battlefield, no Smashville, no if you're Ultimate, no Pokemon Stadium 2. They're just playing FD. I feel like those are like really scrubby players when they think they kind of are playing competitively with just like FD no items, but like not really. And so like I feel like a lot of those people just go on Reddit and just like copy and paste like any rants about Brawl. I forgot what we were saying here.
also
Oh, the follow-up system with
significantly
Smash 4. Yeah, and so I feel like a lot of those people kind of went on to Smash 4, but I feel like Smash 4 kind of holds your hand with a lot of like combos and stuff. Um, like the game like combos for you almost. So like I think I hated Smash 4's follow-up system. I mean, particularly with Rage 2, like the risk reward with Rage, like you just being able to die just because they just spam some stupid like grab down throw option or whatever, really rubbed me the wrong way. But Brawl, coming from someone who's played Brawl and Smash 4, I feel like Brawl's follow-up system was way, way more nuanced than Smash 4. I will say, like, Smash 4 and Ultimate, the follow-up system, I feel like what a lot of people enjoy about it is that, like, they get put into a situation where they're getting comboed, and that situation like will end a lot quicker than Brawl because Brawl's fall speed is slower and it resets a lot of the time. So like you get hit into the air, you air dodge, and someone reads it, and you get hit back into the air. So you're kind of kept in that position for a longer amount of time, which I don't think people like, and that's it also kind of makes it more drawn out. But like the options that you're choosing and the thought process, I feel like is way way deeper than Smash 4. Ultimate 2, but uh, even more so in Smash 4. So
used to the ending lag on air dodges, tightening the window you had to punish them, which when combined with the higher landing lag on aerial attacks meant that it was often far too easy for the defender to escape a bad situation. To be clear here, I do not think hit
yeah,
stun canceling
so
is a
he's saying like just like because you can use multiple air dodges and like they are super quick in the air, like because they're kind of like the speed of a spot dodge almost. You can just like spam air dodge to get back to the ground. It's kind of true. I feel like the thing with Smash 4 is like Smash 4's ending lag for air dodge is when you do it into the ground, whereas Brawl's ending lag for like the large amounts of ending lag for air dodge is when you just do it in the air. It's way longer, and then it's like reversed, right? So like you want to air dodge into the ground in Brawl, you don't want to really air dodge into the ground in Smash 4, or not as much. So like where the lag is just reverse. In Smash 4 it's in the ground, in Brawl it's like in the air, if that makes sense. I also don't like in Smash 4 how like it was very easy to get reversaled with air dodge. And you can say the same thing about Brawl. Like you can get reversaled also when you air dodge into the ground. Plenty of times like snakes will like fast fall air dodge into the ground and up tilt and kill you for it. But I think the thing with all like Smash 4 is because rage is also a thing. You have to or like you get reversaled and you can like die at such an early percent, like it was stupid, whereas Brawl you're not dying at a stupid early percent for getting reversaled most of the time.
good mechanic at all. Neither in Brawl nor in Smash 4 or Ultimate. It's just that
um
Brawl has other
I I don't know how much I agree with that. Like I think Brawl's follow-up system's fine. I like it, I would say. So hit stun canceling, sure. Like maybe they could have like increased the amount of hit stun or like decrease the amount of time when you could quote unquote hit stun cancel in Brawl. Um a little bit, and that would be fine. Um but overall I enjoy Brawl's like follow-up system even with hit stun canceling. Like I said, you can a lot of times you can easily cover air dodge. Um so it's like not really that big of a problem. And on like times like characters who are easy, who can easily like air dodge into the ground and like reversal you, like sneak up tilt. It's just another option you just have to kind of keep in mind when you're playing the game.
Things that allow you to compensate for the loss of guaranteed combos. Fast, far-reaching aerial attacks that don't have absurd landing lag or useless auto-cancel frames that make them a commitment, and air dodges that are more punishable. Sheik was such a dominant character for much of Smash 4's lifespan, in large part because she was one of the few characters who had a really good auto-cancel on her forward aerial attack,
Yeah, that's
along
true.
with just 10 frames of landing lag and good range. On the topic of things that Smash 4 made worse from Brawl, directional influence, the mechanic that allows you to alter your trajectory upon
God, I
getting
could
hit.
go on forever about DI in Brawl and Melee compared to Smash 4 and Ultimate. DIing and SDI is like it made the games always I feel like feel very fresh and new. In Smash 4 and Ultimate, when I play those games, I feel like I play like an 30 minutes to an hour of the game, and I just like run into I've already went through like 90% of situations that you're going to run into. Like you it's like the same matches over and over again. Whereas like in Brawl and Melee, like because of SDI and like it you get put into a disadvantaged situation with SDI and DI. It still makes it feel like a new experience um every game. And you have to like adapt to the DI, adapt to the SDI, and kind of try to like uh in every situation. Um, and it just adds so many more variables that it makes the game. Oh, it only makes the games like feel really new and fresh to me. It just does not stale out as easily as Smash 4 and Ultimate.
In Melee, the game that introduced the
I don't know if
mechanic,
also
you
like
could
if you guys remember like Smash Doc. I know Smash Doc was mostly melee focused, but there's a little section in the Smash Doc where I think it's Prague who is saying like melee's like playing like improv jazz or something like that. And yeah, it's because like DI is just such a big part of the game. Um, it just makes every situation feel fresh, and it's like you can still follow up with the DI. It's not like DI is like the end all be all of being in disadvantage, right? Like you can still follow up it after it, but that's why like you'll see like combo videos in Melee, um, and it's not just like the same combo that you've seen over and over and over again.
alter your character's launch angle by up to 20 degrees, allowing you to escape combos or survive powerful moves that would have otherwise killed. It made combos in Melee into a guessing game and made the combo system
Oh,
more
he's going over right
dynamic
now.
in
I
that
don't.
game.
Why does it keep happening?
Brawl retained the system with one major difference. You can't DI moves that don't put you into the tumble animation, which is another reason why it
You can
sucks to
DI. You
get
can
stuck in
smash
this
DI
animation.
though. I'm pretty
Against
sure.
moves that send into tumble, the mechanic behaves the same, allowing up to a 20-degree deviation from the move's launch angle. Because of hit stun cancelling, the mechanic isn't really useful for escaping combos, but it still is important for survival. Smash 4 nerfed DI substantially, to the point that you can only alter your character's launch angle by a hair under 10 degrees.
Yeah, and it
About
also made like I hate when people. I don't hate when people say this, but like when people say that was really good DI in Smash 4 and Ultimate, I'm like you're just you just hold in. Like 90% of the time you're just holding in. Um, and like the nuance is not really there as much. Whereas Brawl, like generally you want to hold into the corners, and you can say like, oh, you're just always holding into the corners. Well, you have to really understand like what move you're going to get hit by in a situation and get ready to DI that move and like know that move's trajectory. So like knowing the trajectory of all like these kill moves was like kind of important in Brawl, like more important than like Smash 4 especially, or yeah, Smash 4 especially. Ultimate, it's a little bit nuanced because it is good to DI into the corners for vertical kill moves, but horizontal kill moves you just hold left or right, or you're just holding in basically. So I just feel like there's less expression of skill in DI in these games, which is really boring in my opinion.
About half of what was possible in Melee and Brawl. And yeah, this Smash 4 system gets used in Ultimate because Smash 4 was basically a 4-year beta test for that game. Put these things together,
I
the
think
nerf to DI.
I can't remember if they changed it in Smash 4, if they changed the way DI works, or I think it was, right? So it is like the end of Smash 4 is like how it was in Ultimate. I forget actually.
System, laggier aerial attacks, and safer air dodges. And Smash 4 was a game where characters would fish for the same repetitive cookie cutter
Exactly.
combos.
Yeah, I kind of
Down
said that
throw,
earlier. Like the game held your hand, and like yeah, they're just fishing for the same combos over again. It makes the game just feel very stale very quickly. DI just was such a good mechanic, and it's really sad that they kind of nerfed it and took it away. I feel like it's I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm not on the dev team. I feel like this is like a Namco uh decision almost that they did this, but I don't know.
up air, return to neutral, try again. Or if you were Mario, add in a few up tilts. You only needed to watch a character for one match to see basically everything
Yes,
they had to
you just
offer.
said what I said earlier. So
Characters like Sheik
yeah, it gets super stale.
stood out because of how long her combos were. But that was partly because her damage output was reduced so heavily that it was kinda necessary to compensate.
It's
That
like
was
one
a
of my
common
biggest
theme in
problems with Smash 4 and Ultimate is how stale the games get like so quickly.
Smash 4. Despite the reduced safety on many attacks, their damage output was also nerfed, leaving that game to be as slow paced as Brawl even while Smash 4 rule sets used only 2 stocks instead of Brawl's 3. Smash 4 is an annoying game to talk about because while Brawl made changes to the engine that are easy to identify, Smash 4 took 2 steps in the right direction, nerfing hit stun cancelling and
Like I
removing
said, I like hit stun canceling overall as a
ledge
mechanic,
invincibility.
and it was overall I think good. I actually think maybe they should have let you jump earlier than they did. But that might just be mostly a Meta Knight problem because Meta Knight wouldn't be as good if you weren't as forced to air dodge in a lot of situations or throw out an attack. If jumping became more of a viable option out of hit stun, I think it would kind of nerf Meta Knight a little bit, just because you'd have one more option that would be harder to cover. I guess maybe for other characters, like it wouldn't be as a problem. So I guess yeah, I overall like the way Brawl took uh, the follow-up mechanics. Um, but yeah, the invincibility thing, I think that was a great idea overall. Nerfing and removing invincibility when you get off the ledge. I think maybe I still would have favored some invincibility. Um, but maybe I'm thinking from a Brawl's perspective because sometimes like it's again maybe I'm just thinking Meta Knight, but sometimes it's really hard to get off the ledge without having invincibility. So like if you jump off the ledge, you still retain some of your invincibility when you grab it, but in Smash 4 and Ultimate you just immediately lose it when you get off the ledge. Um, I definitely think if you re-grab the ledge, you should not have invincibility. I think that is a super, super good change that they did. And that obviously would nerf Meta Knight a lot because then he can't just blink forever.
On regrab, which prevented people from stalling on the ledge. But Smash 4 took several subtle steps backward through its changes to most characters'
For
movesets.
sure.
I've already
Diddy, that's
spoken
also
about
one of the reasons I prefer Brawl. Because my character, Diddy, it's just the most fun to play Brawl Diddy. And he has the most movement options, the most tech, very, very fluid character. I freaking love Brawl Diddy. Smash 4 Diddy was just so boring compared to Brawl Diddy. I think I like realized that like in the first month of the game. I'm like, this is so much more boring than like Brawl Diddy. And I was like, well, let me give it a shot, let me give it a chance. I'll give it time to see if the game develops. Like, Melee did not start off by like people wave dashing everywhere, um, dash dancing everywhere, having all those really awesome movement options. But yeah, the game never really took off for me in that aspect.
About the increased lag on aerials, but there is more. The increased knockback on many throws, especially throws that were used to set up low percent combos. The most prominent examples are the down throws of Falco, King DDD, Meta Knight, and Pikachu. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Three of those characters had really good chain throws using those exact moves in Brawl. It made sense to increase the knockback for balance purposes, you might say. This is a case of misidentifying the problem. Brawl was full of chain
Yeah,
throws and
there's
other
a lot
combos involved.
more ways they could go about nerfing chain grabs. And I don't think chain grabs are inherently bad. I just being able to chain grab like the entire stock is bad. But if it's just a couple chain grabs, I think overall that's fine. Um, as long as it's not super detrimental to the character where they're like losing stocks because of it or taking huge amounts of damage. Um, I kind of do like the mechanic of not being able to regrab in Smash 4 and Ultimate, but I feel like it should have been probably after a single. Like you can regrab a single time and then maybe no more after that. I think that probably would have been better. Um, and there's a lot of ways they could have just went about nerfing chain grabs in general.
Involving spamming the same move, not because of their low knockback. Melee was full of low knockback moves, but combos were very dynamic and varied in
Yeah,
that
because
game.
like DI was also more important. I think more chain grabbing, especially in melee, they still have to react to the DI. Where in brawl you don't get put into those chain grabs you don't get put into those non-tumble, or you do get put into non-tumble hit stun, so you can't normally DI it. You can smash the DI the non-tumble hit stun, but you can't smash the DI throws. So
Brawl was full of such things because of a mechanic known as stale move negation.
yeah, oh
A
yeah,
mechanic
staling.
that has
Staling kind of sucked in Brawl, and that's also one of the reasons why matches could take forever because a lot of people would live for a very long time due to like their really good moves, not only being like their good damage dealing moves, but also being like their kill moves. So yeah, the staling mechanic it does kind of put another interesting layer of depth into it. But like as Diddy can have a hard time killing a really heavy character in Brawl. Like I cannot use like down smash on like a DDD until like 150% until I know it's going to kill. Otherwise, it's going to get stale, and I can't really use it as a kill move anymore. So I think that kind of does put some like an interesting another layer, but I think they took it too far in Brawl. I think it should have been nerfed a little bit from what it was. Um, and yeah, when it comes to throws, like it just makes the chain grabs last longer a lot of the times, which is not good.
been in every Smash game, which reduces the damage and knockback of a move that is frequently used. The last 9 moves performed by a character in Brawl are put into the staleness queue. The idea was to punish players for spamming kill moves, but in competitive play it leads to many repetitive combos, like Sheik's forward tilt combo on Fox. Because the move is being loaded into the staleness queue, the reduced knockback is allowing it to combo far longer than it would otherwise. Because Brawl has a staling effect that is far worse than Melee, and Smash 4 for that matter. This is one of the few changes I would make to Brawl before I would even remove hit stun cancelling. One of
Yeah,
the
like I mean, it's the mechanic overall. Like it's a solid idea. Like they don't want you to spam the same move over and over again, so we'll nerf it every time you land a hit with it, right? Um, but they went too far with it in Brawl, I think. It's maybe somewhere between Brawl and Smash 4 it could have been kind of interesting. Honestly, like the other games kind of had it fine with the staling. I don't have a problem with the staling in the other games, so.
few major improvements Smash 4 made over Brawl was to tone down the effects of the staling. But as if to distance itself from Brawl as much as possible.
I guess I
They
mean you
seem
still
to
think
have
about scaling in Smash 4 and Ultimate to a degree, just so like it's still, yeah. I think they did it fine, but I think they could have also been somewhere between Brawl and Smash 4 with the scaling part.
added so much ending lag and knockback to throws, like to make sure you can't chain grab. Except they already implemented a specific countermeasure against chain grabbing. Characters are immune to being grabbed for 70 frames after being launched using a throw, and the same applies to Ultimate. So all the nerfs to throws serve only to reduce your ability to punish off of them and the variety of viable follow-up options. I mentioned a few characters already, but Marth is possibly the worst example of this. In Brawl, his forward throw gave him follow-up potential into his aerials,
So
and
I'm
chain
kind of confused right here. I feel like Smash 4, like there's way more follow-up potential out of throws. Is he? I think he's saying like the opposite right now. I know he's like specifically thinking about Marth, but like to me, the stereotype of Smash 4 is like lull down throw to imagination, like down throw to whatever you want. So
throws on fast
I don't
fallers at
know.
very low
I kind of
percentages.
don't
I
follow
should
this
make
as
it
much.
clear,
Yeah, like some characters, like Marth, but Marth, yeah, I mean, yeah, like Marth.
I don't consider chain throws to be an inherently bad thing.
That's, yeah,
And
I agree
I
with that
don't
earlier.
think they should be treated any differently to the rest of the game's combo system. Sure,
Like yeah,
some
like
of them
forward throw down air Marth, like that seems like pretty. Like a pretty cool option, and like both of those characters are top tier. It's not like destroying Falco. You can only use it for a limited, like a very small percentage window. So I feel like that's fine. Like something like that.
might look lame, but the nature of competitive gameplay is that you have to put up with lameness if you are playing to win. Something being termed lame is poor reasoning on its own to nerf it or
That's
remove
true.
it. Now, I do agree that infinites are generally
So it's
really
like
bad.
over centralization. Like if the entire matchup comes down to like uh getting a grab and that's the matchup, like that's not a good thing to have in your game. Like you want it to be more nuanced than that. And yeah, like Falco's going to destroy Ganondorf outside of getting like a grab or whatever. So, but like yeah, he definitely suffers from it. And like down throw chain grabbing to spiking a Ganondorf is kind of lame because Ganondorf's already a shit character, right? And Falco's a top tier character, and he can destroy the character without chain grabbing. So, um, it's like it's like kicking something like when it's already down, right? Ganondorf's already got it bad enough.
More specifically, ones that are easy to perform, such as DDD's down throw, infinite on Donkey Kong. This is an extreme case
Yeah,
of an
it's super
option being
easy.
so powerful as to basically make the game uninteractive. Level 9
See, like
CPU
something that would be really hard is DDD's buffered pivot down throw chain grab infinite on some characters. Like that is like super impossible, and the only person who I ever knew could do it was Vex. Um, like to me, that's kind of cool that someone is good enough to be able to do that type of infinite. Because you have to input like six inputs within a 10 frame buffer window, and it's not like an easy six inputs input either. Um, I think maybe if someone like if people could consistently get good enough where it just defined the matchup, well then yeah, that then it would be a problem. Even if it did have a high skill floor of where you would have to of when you could do it. Um, yeah.
are useful for demonstrating a point here. For their tendency to air dodge or attack at the first possible frame after being hit. Fox is notably one of the few viable characters in this game that lacks any sort of overpowered move or combo. His moveset is simply well balanced and above average on the whole.
It's true.
He
Brawl
has
Fox is
neither
pretty sick.
Falco's down
I
throw, chain
wish
throw, no
Brawl
Mars.
Fox did not get matchup checked as hard as he did by Pikachu and Ice Climbers in this game, because Brawl Fox could be is a really sick character, and it would be cooler to see him more at top level play.
Arth's grab release jank, and yet he gets rewarded pretty strongly for every successful hit. Even though most of these follow-ups can be dodged and so aren't quite true combos, his frame data, and it's important to emphasize, Brawl's characters all have almost unanimously superior frame data on all their moves, especially aerial attacks, when compared to their Smash 4 incarnations. Fox's frame data gives him the time to punish his opponent's defensive options. CPUs I know have some pretty notorious bad habits that are easy to pick up on, but when it comes to comboing them, they are largely restricted to the same defensive options as a human player would be. And human players will have habits that you will be picking up on anyway. The worse aerial frame data in Smash 4 means that your ability to keep the opponent trapped and disadvantaged is greatly reduced, which funnels players into relying on those cookie cutter throw combos. But it goes beyond just extending combos. Brawl's aerial attacks are also quite effective at starting combos themselves, which in turn gives you more options on the approach. Pay attention to Smash 4 VODs and you will notice that characters who are not Sheik are spending most of their time just running back and forth, maybe dashing in every now and then hoping to get a grab.
So yeah, it's also yeah, they run back and forth and they hold shield, and that's also kind of a Smash 4 stereotype. I feel like with Brawl, at least like I said, like the air to ground transition and ground to air transition, because of the auto cancel windows and air dodge being good options. I feel like the footsies game in Brawl is usually cooler than Smash 4. Although Smash 4 did have perfect pivoting, which I really liked as a movement option. I just did not like how like the input was in Smash 4, and it also kind of felt controller dependent on how consistent you can kind of get it. But perfect pivoting as a movement option is pretty cool. It's in Brawl too, it's just not as functionally useful because you don't slide as far. Really like perfect pivoting as a micro spacing option. Really cool footsies option that I wish was more of a thing in Brawl, and I wish they kind of kept in Ultimate.
Having access to both strong grounded and aerial approach options that are not only safe to throw out but also offer reliable conversions into a stronger advantage, gives you more room to mix up your approach.
Yep.
And that in turn helps to speed up the pace of the game. My point is that when it comes to the combo system, Smash 4 correctly identified the problems in Brawl, but proceeded to provide remedies that left the game less interactive, less interesting, and made it far too difficult for players to capitalize on a neutral win and keep
really
the opponent
well
in
said.
disadvantage.
I also kind of feel the same on the wedge system. Like, obviously the wedge system's not perfect in Brawl, but like removing ledge hogging and moving to ledge jumping. While I don't think ledge jumping is inherently like a bad mechanic, I just think edge hogging. There's a lot of nuanced cases in edge hogging that what was I gonna say? That like makes there's a lot more depth to it than like Smash 4 ledge jumping or Ultimate ledge jumping. I feel like they could kind of fix ledge jumping so there is a lot of depth to it, but in they haven't done that yet. And like the problem with edge hogging is that it kind of creates some character imbalances, like Ganondorf and Link and like Falcon all get screwed over by like edge hogging. The recovers are just super bad and leave them super punishable. So like you're kind of sacrificing depth for character balance by introducing wedge jumping, in my opinion. But there's a way to do both, I feel like, and Nintendo and Sakurai have not really done a good job doing both.
And the few characters that could convert meaningfully off a successful hit ended up being nerfed in updates, which you may think is sensible, except the fact those nerfs are supposedly needed in the first place hints at an underlying issue with the game's balancing of offensive and defensive options. Brawl Meta Knight. He is plastered over this game's reputation, and for some very, very good reasons. It was common to find half or more.
So before I even get into this section, Brawl Meta Knight is pretty sick. Obviously, he's super overpowered, and there's a way to keep him pretty sick without, while keeping him, like, balanced. There's a lot of things like you could do. Like you could fix Tornado. Tornado just like invalidates characters by itself. Um, you can fix Shuttle Loop as well. Um, what else? I mean, there's so much you can fix with Meta Knight, but like if I like the first things I'm touching are like Tornado, and probably Shuttle Loop, his special moves. Um, you can also play Meta Knight super lame, which is also kind of a problem, like a big plinking problem, right? Like he can run away. That's part of the problem with Meta Knight. Is you can play him in so many different ways. Um, he's good offensively and defensively, right? So if you could nerf his defensive options while keeping his offensive options just a little bit more toned down, I think that would be very awesome for the game.
Of a single top 8 comprised of Meta Knight mains. Your character's viability basically came down to 1, are they Meta Knight? And 2, if they're not Meta Knight, can they deal with Meta Knight somewhat competently? Some characters who would have been otherwise tournament viable ended up hamstrung by having a bad matchup versus Meta Knight. Rob and Donkey Kong, to name a few. For those who are asking why,
like Rob has a
Meta Knight had all the usual characteristics of a top-tier fighting game character. Fast frame data and a good set of kill moves.
Too, like
These things, in and of themselves,
is a big one. But yeah, the matchup sucks.
Fast frame data and a good set of kill moves. These things, in and of themselves, wouldn't normally make a character excessively dominating. Melee Fox has a frame 1 combo starter and kill moves that he can combo into reliably, after all, and he isn't nearly as domineering in his game. What elevated Meta Knight from your run-of-the-mill best character to one that gave the game an existential crisis was how he interacted with the game's universal mechanics. Hit stun cancelling and the ledge mechanics, combined with his low skill floor. Let me illustrate my point by continuing with the comparison to Melee
True.
Fox.
Yeah, I would say Meta Knight had a kind of a decently low skill floor. Not compared. There's other characters have even lower skill floor than Meta Knight, I would say. But he has a very high skill ceiling also. So low skill floor, high skill. Like you can pick up Meta Knight pretty quickly and have like a pocket Meta Knight. Should your pocket Meta Knight be winning tournaments? No, unless you got really good at the Meta Knight like, super quickly. Like people should be able to deal with the pocket Meta Knight. Yeah.
Despite Fox's positive attributes, he is ultimately held back by 2 things. He's very difficult to play and play well consistently. So technically demanding that people have given themselves hand injuries trying to play him. And secondly, he suffers for making those mistakes.
Yeah,
Melee doesn't have any hit
really for making mistakes. Like Meta Knight is kind of light, but he has a solid momentum cancel option with up air. It's not like the greatest, but solid. But his disadvantage state is just like amazing. His disadvantage state is basically neutral. So, he does have poor airspeed, which a lot of characters can take advantage of. But oh yeah, I would say like the disadvantage state for Meta Knight is like almost non-existent sometimes.
Hit stun cancelling whatsoever. If an attack deals 60 frames of hit stun, you have to sit through those 60 frames of hit stun before you can act. The only exception being if your character hits the ground before then, which will allow them to tech. As such, virtually any character who lands a hit on Fox can convert that into a strong advantage.
I would also say I wish teching was a safer option in Brawl. It doesn't need to be like super safe, but teching in Brawl is like kind of laggy, and that sometimes it makes me sad. It's like floor techs.
You guessed it, Meta Knight can cancel hit stun. And to make matters worse, he has some of the best aerial attacks in the game, 5 mid-air jumps, the best air dodge, and by holding the jump button he can glide, which allows him
tied
to
with the best air dodge. It's not like his air dodge is like substantially better than anyone else's. I don't think. I didn't even know he was tied with the best air dodge. So
glide away
I'm
to
not fact
safety and
checking this
also
guy as he's
perform a
saying it,
glide
but
attack.
um,
And his
I
up
didn't
special
realize Midnight's air dodge is like super super good, but I guess it is.
way to safety and also perform a glide attack. And his up special deals high knockback while transitioning into yet another glide. Outside of a few specific chain throws and grab release setups, most characters can't punish his defensive options without putting themselves at great risk. It then follows that he is not a difficult character to pick up and do well with. The disjointed hitboxes on his moves make punishing his attacks out of shield very difficult, and his overall attack speed, he can perform his up air attack 4 times in 1 second. Means that when he pops you up into the air, he can easily cover all your defensive options, even if his initial guess is wrong.
Yep, frame trapping.
Meta Knight was bad for Brawl not because he was lame, but because he could ignore entire systems that other characters had to put up with.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that is no more apparent in how he takes advantage of the ledge mechanics.
Yep.
He obviously has an extremely easy time getting back to the stage, but where things truly get ugly is when he grabs onto the ledge and uses the invincibility to stall. Good luck challenging him.
Yeah, I mean, and
because
this
unless
is not
you
as
are
big of a
Snake who
problem
can
because
arc
of ledge grab limit, but I do think ledge grab limit should have been much lower, mostly because of Midnight, and it could have been exclusive to Midnight. But yeah, there still needs to be rules put in place for Midnight and running away, and ledge play and everything. The ledge
his
is just
hand
too safe
grenades
for him.
down there, you are not beating his up air attack. They even had to go as far as to implement a ledge grab limit rule in tournaments, because there was no other way he was getting up from there. But, like, what about the rest of the cast? They are better balanced than popular opinion might have you think. There are some infamously one-sided matchups, like DDD versus Donkey Kong, or Marth versus Lucas or Ness, or Wolf versus, well, a few characters. But in a game with 39 characters, those matchups are relatively few and far between. In
Yeah.
many cases, you would just invest in a secondary character like
you
in
didn't see
any
the
other
matchups because people were playing Meta Knight, so it didn't matter anyway.
fighting game, so it was no big deal. Meta Knight is unique among the top tiers in being easy to play. Snake is anything but a simple character, using a combination of grenades, remote guided missiles, mortar shells,
It's funny.
C4 and
I think Snake also doesn't have the highest skill floor, but also most characters in Brawl have a really high skill ceiling. But back like in 2008, 2009, 2010 even, people would say Snake is just such an easy character to pick up and play. Because you throw grenades, you forward tilt, up tilt to get the kill, right? So it's kind of funny hearing that, but yeah, like at top level, eventually people got so good, like with not just Meta Knight, with every character that at covering Snake's disadvantage state, that like Snake became a lot harder to play. Namely because knowing what to do in his disadvantage state was like more of a higher skill floor.
landmines to control the stage. He's a fascinating character to watch when played well. He's also not lacking
Very
in
true.
close range prowess. His jab and tilts are among the best in the game, having huge hitboxes that can kill at very realistic percentages, his up tilt being the most infamous, stronger than even some characters' smash attacks. Falco's playstyle is all about locking the stage down with his lasers. His blaster has a lot of ending lag when used on the ground, but the aerial version auto-cancels on landing, greatly increasing the rate at which he can put more out. He has the ability to slightly change up the timings on his blaster shots to mess up your shield and dodge timing. He can even silent laser, firing a laser shot so close to the ground that the move auto-cancels before the sound effect even plays, making it that much harder to deal with. Closing the distance against him seems logical, only you now have to
kind of a weird
contest his
thing to bring up silently. Like silent laser just meant like you're getting like the lowest possible laser to the ground, which is good to be able to hit like low smaller characters. Um, I feel like it was kind of a weird point to kind of like emphasize silent lasers for as long as he did, which wasn't very long, but it would just been fine just to mention that you could do it and just move on. It wasn't like a game-changing mechanic for Falco or anything.
Strong boxing game courtesy of his jab, which hits on frame 2 and has deceptive range, and can be cancelled into his grab for his down throw chain throw that can deliver
Yeah,
40% or
see, the
more
thing with like
damage.
Falco is like he had really good close quarter combat options, and he had a good camping option with laser, so you kind of wanted to play like the mid game around him, um, where you like kind of around the area where like if he decided to phantasm through you, like you could dash back and like punish it or at least kind of threaten him.
His down aerial hits on frame 5, has a lingering hitbox, and auto cancels in a short hop. His back aerial shares these positive traits. What sets a character like Falco apart from Meta Knight, despite having the potential to be very lame, is that Falco is going to have a bad time if you break his stage control. His higher
Mm-hmm.
falling speed and slow airspeed leaves him vulnerable to chain throws and combos that a good chunk of the cast doesn't have to contend with.
I'll also
And
say I feel like
beyond that,
Falco
his
kind of
poor
had
horizontal
predictable kill
speed gives him a
options. Like
tough
his
time
best kill options
escaping
were like up
follow-ups.
smash
Diddy Kong has a
and
different
back
take
air.
on the projectile game.
Uh,
Using his
like
two bananas, he
he
can
kill with
set
down
up
smash and
moves
forward
at any
smash also, but
percentage
down smash
and
wasn't the
even do
strongest,
something
and up
known as
forward smash
glide
was kind of
tossing,
a
which
little
is
bit more
canceling a
telegraphed and
roll with an
slow.
item toss.
So like up smash and back air was two really good kill moves, but if you knew you're at kill percents, you're kind of looking out for those options in the because like those are the ones that you can kill with. And he doesn't have the best out of shield options either, particularly to his back because he just has like back air if on his back, so you can also kind of makes it predictable. Like, oh, this is his only option to hit me out of shield with his back to me, so you can kind of be ready for it in that instance. And like Falco back air out of shield, like while it's like it's good, it's not like the greatest thing on earth though. Like there are characters with better out of shield options to the back.
Speed gives him a tough time escaping follow-ups. Diddy
He's light
Kong has
too.
a different take on the projectile game.
Did he?
Using his two bananas, he can set up moves at any percentage and even do something known as glide tossing, which is cancelling a roll with an item toss so that he carries the momentum from the roll and zooms across the stage. Olimar is another very
I
technical
need to go
character.
super far in Diddy, but since I play the character, obviously, I will go a little bit more. So Diddy was really like you could play Diddy in a lot of ways. You can play it kind of campy or aggressive. So like campy, like the stereotype was like banana in hand, banana in front of you, and you're pop gunning. So like if you get hit by a pop or peanut, like you kind of just fall into the ground, and you can sometimes fall into the banana. Um, and you can play him pretty like aggressively too because his dash attack literally had no end lag, which sounds like really good and maybe even toxic. But well, while it's probably the best dash attack in the game, there are a lot of counterplay options to the dash attack. So, namely, Diddy's dash attack is transcendent, and that's the case in other Smash games too. Um, and it's really bad for it to be transcendent because its hitbox is really small. So it will lose to like literally everything that you like throw out. Like Diddy's dash attack will probably lose to it. So if you throw out a hitbox, like you will be fine. You can also SDI it. You can SDI through it, like while getting hit by it, and shield it in the middle of it. So, but you have to be ready for the dash attack if you are going to do that. Like you couldn't just do it on reaction. Um, but yeah, because it has literally no end lag, you can use it to close the distance and like start trying to get follow-ups, or you do on shield, and you have a lot of shield pressure already because you probably have, or you're probably like even with the opponent, so I can like throw out a jab or something, um, and they won't have an option out of shield to counter that. They'll have to be ready to shield a jab or spot dodge or something.
He can have up to 6 Pikmin following him at once, with each
I
type having
hated
its own
Almar
unique
so
properties.
much in Brawl. He was my most hated character. Um, I was really bad at the matchup for a very long time, and then I got good at it at the end of Brawl's lifespan. But yeah, I hated Olimar so much. I was really glad they nerfed his Pikmin count from Brawl to Smash 4. But I will say nothing that like my hatred for Smash 4 and Ultimate Sonic um, dwarfs my hatred for Brawl Olimar. I would much rather play a million Brawl Olimars than one Smash 4 Sonic or one Ultimate Sonic. Um, but yeah, Olimar, he could be kind of toxic, like uh, a lot of people like finding Meta Knight more than Olimar. Um, the problem with Olimar was like his camp game was really strong, and it was really hard to approach him. Not only because he had these purple Pikmin, and he could have a lot of them. Like Devuz has 4 purple Pikmin right here, and they all have like a hitbox that will knock you back. But also his pivot grab. Pivot grabbing was kind of toxic in Brawl, but Olimar's pivot grab was like on another level. Um, Characters just could not get in on this character or approach him without taking like a million damage. And at 0, he has throw follow-ups too, down throw, up smash, and like depending on your Pikmin lineup, you can get a lot more a lot of the times. So that was yeah, that's Olimar. But he's kind of a glass cannon because his tether recovery, he can just die at any time. Whistle armor really helps him his recovery and makes it a lot safer. But yeah, his recovery was just kind of bad. That like just by the fact that you could die like at any time, it kind of made it feel like a lot of characters still had a chance against them.
White Pikmin are great at racking up damage. Yellow Pikmin travel the farthest when thrown. Blue Pikmin give him access to a powerful kill throw.
I don't
And
know if yellow
purple
Pikmin have
Pikmin
the.
deal.
Oh, white Pikmin are thrown the farthest. Yellow Pikmin are like thrown like the highest. Like they get thrown up higher than most characters. But you'll throw a white Pikmin way further than a yellow Pikmin, so it's not quite accurate.
A hefty blow at the cost of traveling the shortest distance and being unable to latch onto targets. The Pikmin
Did
he
you say
plucks are
Red Pikmin
randomized,
had
though the
stronger
chances
aerials? I
are
don't know if you said
affected
that.
by the kind of terrain he plucks them from. Brawl's characters may have been mostly very
The
campy and
terrain
not
thing was
flashy.
stupid too, but it kind of did kind of add another layer of depth to Olimar. But overall, I think it was kind of not a good mechanic considering how good Olimar was as a character and RNG. I think RNG mechanics should be very very limited in the game and not be as influential of a factor. So I do like in Smash 4 Ultimate that you have a set Pikmin pluck lineup.
In the way of combos or kill setups that would be food for highlight reels. But they did have quite a bit of depth to them, and there was a lot you could do to distinguish yourself from other people using the same character. That's the most damning part of its sequel. Smash 4 not only removed much of the depth of interaction from the combo game, but actively went further to streamline characters' neutral games, all in the name
It's
of
true.
balance.
So like, yeah, I think he kind of the nailed the uh whatever the expression is. I can't think right now. Yeah, like I'd rather play a game that has more depth, even if it has more character balance problems. And it helps a lot that my character is still very good in Brawl 2. So like I understand like if your favorite character is like Ness or something, and you really want to play Ness at a competitive level, like you can play Ness at a very high level in Brawl. Um, but like and Ness probably realistically wasn't going to be winning like big tournaments. Um, So yeah, if your favorite character was Ness, I understand like why you would play Smash 4 Ultimate over Brawl, just because he's more viable of a character in the game. I will say I think Brawl Ness is like way cooler than Smash 4 Ultimate Ness, but um, yeah, I would get that. Like, oh no, I can't play the character I like playing at like a top level. I can't go and win like a national tournament with them like you maybe could in Smash 4 and Ultimate. Um, so yeah, I understand anyone who doesn't play Brawl because of that, but I'd still Brawl is just a more interesting game because it has more depth to it, in my opinion.
It took the fear of another Brawl Meta Knight and used it to rip anything of interest out of the game. You need only look at how Falco and Olimar suffered in the transition. Olimar had his Pikmin count reduced to 3, so that his playstyle now mostly revolved around repetitive down throw into aerial attack combos that the game was rife with.
I kind of think Smash 4 and
Falco,
Ultimate Ultimate
man,
are
they did
kind of
you
cool.
dirty.
At
His
least
down throw can't
sometimes.
combo into
Well, I don't know.
anything besides
Yeah,
dash
kind of cooler
attack.
than Brawl
His down
Olimar. Brawl
aerial
Olimar could
has
be cool
11
too,
more
but
frames of startup,
I hated Brawl
higher
Olimar, so
landing
it's hard for
lag,
me to
and
say
can no
anything
longer
positive
auto
about the
cancel in
character.
a short hop. The removal of dash attack cancelled up
Yep,
smash, a technique from Brawl that added
they did
another
Falco
approach
very
option,
dirty.
restricts his
Melee
approach
Falco and Brawl
even
Falco were just
further.
so cool.
And
I love
finally,
both those
most of
characters a
all,
lot.
his blaster
See, also the thing with Brawl, I feel like I don't know how much thought went into like trying to balance Brawl, um, or Melee. Like, and I'm not talking about like within like respect to characters versus characters, but I'm talking about like with respect to characters like movesets. Like in Brawl, you'll find a lot of moves in Brawl where they're like just downright like useless moves, and they try to make them a little bit better. In Smash 4 and Ultimate, or at least like more viable. So think like DDD's like Jet Hammer. DD's Jet Hammer is like the most useless down B in
approach
Brawl probably. But at least it has some uses in Smash 4 and Ultimate, right? So they like try to make moves better, but I also kind of think it's kind of cool that I feel like in Brawl they just like made a character move set and they were like, okay, it's gonna work kind of like this, and then like the players kind of found out how to use it. In Smash 4, in Ultimate, I feel like they made a move and they made it so like this move has this intended purpose, where in Brawl I don't feel like they design a move to have like a purpose. They're like, okay, this move is like goes to this character because that's what he does in the games, and they just let the players just figure out how to use it. Um, so I think because of that, it kind of makes like Smash 4 and Ultimate kind of hold your hand with how you're supposed to play the game a little bit more than Brawl and Melee too.
even further. And finally, most of all, his blaster no longer auto cancels on landing. Diddy Kong wasn't spared either. Glide tossing is nerfed so as to
Yeah,
be useless, and he
Diddy.
can now have only one banana out at a time instead of two. His playstyle is centered around, well, you guessed, generic repetitive grab combos. He's still a top tier
Yeah,
character, but that
so
doesn't
boring,
convey
dude.
the whole
Like
story
it
of
was
how
such a travesty going from Brawl Diddy to Smash 4 Diddy. And it's funny because Smash 4 Diddy's like better than Brawl Diddy, but like he's just so much of a less interesting character in Smash 4 than Brawl, and it was very sad to see.
much was removed in the transition. The thing is, Smash 4 players, at the time of course, because people have slowly come around to the fact that it wasn't much of an improvement over Brawl, would defend these changes with the tried and true balance argument. And while Smash 4 is definitely more balanced than Brawl, that balance was largely achieved at the cost of a cast full of one-dimensional characters. And I
Exactly.
should
This
know that
guy,
because I
he's
mained
nailing
Meta
it.
Knight. Yes, in Smash 4, not Brawl. And in Smash 4, his game plan revolved around fishing for dash attack and down throw, like
He
so
nailed
many
this
other
so
characters.
hard. Like
Every
this is
time
the
the dev
reason I feel like so strongly that Brawl is just so much of a better game than Smash 4. And you can disagree with that. That's fine. I do think there are some really cool characters in Smash 4. I think Sheik is really cool. I think Fox is really cool in Smash 4. Um, and there's some other characters, but like most of the characters are just so like you said, is one dimensional. Um, it's it kind of hurt me to see like how big Smash 4 got, like the way that it was designed. I'm glad like Smash like blew up, and that a large part of that was because of Smash 4. Um, but the fact that like so many new players came into the scene and like saw Smash 4 and were like, wow, this is how cool Smash was, and like not doing that for Brawl or even Melee. I know Melee is a very large fan base too, um, but that kind of hurt.
devs wanted to approve a character, their go-to solution was just to give them a combo throw. Donkey Kong got his
Yeah.
up throw up air that would lead into a
Like
kill.
so cool.
Bowser
It's right,
got
so
up throw up
interactive.
air. Both of these characters saw some of the biggest rises in viability across Smash 4's lifespan, in large part
See, but
thanks to their
it
combo
wasn't
throws.
fun.
And by the way,
Like,
Bowser's up throw ended up being so damn central to his gameplay that they nerfed it a few patches later. Likewise, nerfs also tended to come down to combo throws. Sheik had her down and forward throws nerfed to deal more knockback, preventing her from setting up kills with them. Diddy Kong and Luigi had their combo throws nerfed in the same manner. But why? If chain throws were removed, then why the obsession with nerfing throw-based combos? Why, especially with how they toned down hit stun cancelling, supposedly to allow the very combos that they were now patching out? I still can't figure out a definitive answer to this. Rather than stop to ask if something was fundamentally wrong with the game, the fact that throws were so powerful and so heavily used because all the other options, namely aerials and projectiles, were nerfed, they simply kept ripping stuff out. The result is characters who are one-dimensional. Even top tiers such as Sheik.
blame Namco. I don't know. That's just when they started working on the Smash titles. That's like when I feel like it went downhill for like depth of the game and game design.
Sheik is one of the most interesting characters that Smash 4 had to offer, and she still falls short of Brawl's top tiers in terms of flexibility of playstyle.
Yeah, overall
But
true.
hey,
Like I said,
where even
Smash
is-
4 Sheik's pretty sick. I really like Smash 4 Sheik. Big Mr. R and Void fan. But yeah, the other top tiers in Brawl I think are still way cooler. Brawl Diddy, Brawl Meta Knight, Brawl Marth, Brawl Falco, I think are all super sick characters. Brawl Zero
Bayonetta in this discussion? Was she a broken character, and did she deserve all the nerfs she received, with an entire patch being dedicated to nerfing her? Firstly, Bayonetta isn't anywhere near as grossly centralizing as Meta Knight was in Brawl.
It's true.
Anyone who even suggests that is completely misinformed on the history of Brawl. She did not possess frame data that was in another league of its own, nor the exaggerated hitboxes that allowed Meta Knight to poke at you from multiple character lengths away. Nor, thanks to the changes to legend mechanics in Smash 4, did she have any viable method of stalling the game. What Bayonetta did do was point to all the problems inherent
She
to
could
Smash
solve the game, just not as much as Meta Knight could.
4's design, and yet to this day no one has picked up on these actual problems, instead mistaking the symptom for the core issue, the nerfed DI system.
Very,
Had
very
Smash
true.
4 simply reused
One of my
the
biggest
DI
problems with
system
Smash
as it
4
had
and Ultimate.
existed in the previous two games, it would have been trivially easy to escape her combos, or at the very least make it substantially harder for her
See,
to
I guess
get
like their thought
consist-
process, like, well, we want to make multi-hits like actually work and make it, so people don't fall out of them. Because in Brawl, like multi-hits, like you could SDI out of it and sometimes punish it. But that was like, first of all, like it was kind of skillful to be able to do that, right? To be able to DI out of a multi-hit and punish the other person for doing it. But also, it's like it's not like multi-hits were bad in Brawl. Like I feel like Nintendo like thought like, oh, multi-hits are terrible because you can just DI out of it. Like multi-hits were super super good. For one, they were like a lingering hitbox. And lingering hitboxes are very good. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the whole DI system was to make multi-hits more functional, but they were functional already.
guaranteed follow-ups. The other issue is the neutral game, as we will go into more detail shortly. But as it pertains to Bayonetta, her very rewarding combos did not mesh well, as far as balance is concerned, with the restricted approach options in Smash 4. It was bad enough that characters had limited options to throw out in neutral. It was even worse to know that the risk-reward ratio was so lopsided against you. And on top of that, Smash 4 heavily nerfed the Smash DI system from Brawl. In case you don't remember what that was, during hit lag, moving the control stick in a certain
Yo, Mr.
direction
Doom,
would
shoutouts to his
shift the character's
some
hurtbox
SDI
in that
montages.
direction. And it's also one of the reasons why multi-hit moves were generally quite bad in Brawl and even in Melee. which Bayonetta does have quite a few multi-hit moves in your kit, and those multi-hit moves are frequently used as combo starters and combo extenders. So it only reinforces my point of view that the nerf to DI and SDI had only negative consequences on the gameplay in Smash 4. Brawl's neutral game is known for, perhaps more than anything, the strength of its shields. Even the most powerful moves deal virtually no shield stun. Smash 4 inherited this on launch, but
So I
roughly a
wonder.
year
Really hope he goes into depth about like the shield pushback. I feel like not enough people like ever mention shield pushback in Brawl. I feel like I don't hear people talk about it nearly as much as like how important it is. Because like I said, yeah, a lot of things are very safe on Brawl on shield when you space them and when you factor in shield pushback. Even though that like frame data wise, it will be like, oh, this move is minus whatever on shield, so it's punishable because you can just shield grab it. Well, not really if you space it, and two because of the shield pushback. So we'll see if he mentions that.
or so later they patched shield stun to be much higher. Much higher.
I
There
do
is,
think there could be
however,
more shield damage in Brawl. Adding more shield damage would have been a cool way to nerf shields in Brawl.
a misconception that nerfing defensive options will lead players to be more aggressive. Brawl, at the end of the day, had the same pacing as Smash 4, and was arguably even faster paced given it had to work with 3 stocks instead of only 2. And I have some numbers to back that up. I randomly pulled whatever VODs came up when searching for competitive matches in the two games, and the results are telling. The average time it took for a stock to be lost in Brawl comes in at 86.5 seconds across 62 stocks, while Smash 4, using a sample of 55 stocks, clocks in at around 78 seconds. In other words, barely a 10% difference between
Wow,
them.
I'm actually really
which
surprised. I did think Smash 4 they lost stocks a lot faster than Brawl. Overall, so I'm kind of surprised about that. I thought Brawl would have been a lot smaller, or a lot what am I saying? I thought Brawl would have taken more time to lose stocks because of scaling and momentum canceling. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of surprised about that.
is not something you would know for sure if you didn't actively take the time to collect the data. That's about one extra sentence of commentary to put into perspective. Brawl's rule set had an extra stock, which obviously meant the actual matches took longer to resolve. But the pace of interactions is hardly substantially slower than
Also,
Smash
I
4.
do think Brawl would do better with 2 stocks overall. Um, that's something I've kind of pushed for in most recent years. I think the viewership of the game would be better with 2 stocks. So, like 2 stocks 7 minutes would be good.
And
2
in
stocks
any
6
case,
minutes.
as I have
I'd say
already
7
stated
minutes, just to be
before and
safe.
will state once again later in this video, Brawl's interactions were qualitatively better even if that meant stocks lasted slightly longer. There's also the point of a stronger DI system. Being able to survive in Brawl was a stronger measure of skill and awareness than it could ever be in Smash 4, with that game's predictable and dominating kill confirms and gutted DI system. To put it another way, Brawl's gameplay looks like a more elaborate freeform dance, whereas Smash 4's is a scripted and highly choreographed fight scene. While defensive options were stronger in Brawl, offensive options were available to counterbalance them. I am, of course, referring to auto-canceling aerial attacks. Look at Marth's neutral aerial frame data in Brawl and compare that to the next game. In Smash 4, the move auto-cancels more than 20 frames later. It can't auto-cancel in a short hop at all. The Brawl version of this move auto-cancels just
Again, this
4
is why Brawl
frames after
feels
the
like
hit.
so like it flows so much better than Smash 4 and Ultimate. Auto cancel window, being able to transition from ground to air. The footsies game, it just feels way more smooth.
Box ends. And this is quite common among the cast. Peach's forward air auto-cancels the exact frame that the hitbox ends. The same applies to Didi's back air. And both of those are kill moves as well. Diddy Kong's forward air auto-cancels at frame 26. His back air at frame 20. Wolf's back air auto-cancels on frame 19. And without that, he goes through only 9 frames of landing lag anyway. Falco's down air, as mentioned earlier, auto cancels in the short hop just 5 frames after the hitbox ends. Even Ganondorf, the king of evil, master of thieves, arguably the worst character in Brawl, and the next 2 games, has a technique known as thunder stomping, auto-cancelling his down air in a short hop, comboing into itself and allowing him to get out another move in case you try to retaliate. With the exception of Diddy's forward air and Wolf, who doesn't return in Smash 4, these options had their auto-cancel frames significantly delayed. The fact that Diddy
I don't
remained
know
the
what I would
top
have
tier
done
character
Smash for Diddy couldn't auto cancel forward air at a short hop.
despite his nerfs goes to show how much a character can benefit from having just one safe button that covers the area in front of them. The most important area to cover in any matchup. And yeah, that move doesn't go to waste with Diddy players. Look, a game doesn't have to copy another in order to be good, but if you're going to make changes that take away from the gameplay, then you at least should add something that differentiates it and makes it worth playing. But yeah, this is why Brawl's shield game isn't that problematic, because many characters have safe grounded and aerial pokes, and the floaty physics are a benefit in allowing characters more control over their
That's
aerial
very true,
spacing.
but are you going to mention the shield pushback?
The fact is that in order for a fighting game to be engaging, you need to have a well-balanced rock, paper, scissors dynamic between attack, block, and grab. Shield stun is low, but characters have low traction that generates a lot of shield pushback, meaning that even if the defending character technically has a frame advantage, they might not be able to cover the distance in time to effectively punish. Grabs get stuffed out by aerial attacks that aren't blocked, but grabs at best lead to highly damaging follow-ups, and in the worst cases, you get to leave your opponent in a bad spot where their landing or recovery can be intercepted. But what happens when you nerf shields, nerf throws, and then nerf attacks even harder? You don't get a game that encourages creativity or aggressive gameplay. You get people running around in a game of red light, green light, waiting to see who uses their laggy attacks first so the other person can dash attack or dash grab in there. Or, as an ultimate, where they buffed aerial attacks to having very low landing lag, but also nerfed grabs again, and largely reused the shield mechanics from Smash 4. People spamming short hop aerials hoping to be the first one to get the hit. This is what happens when you think that the way to create a meta of aggressive gameplay is to buff the aggressive options while nerfing the defensive ones. Smash 4 isn't the first one to make this mistake, because 64 was with how high hit stun was in that game and how terrible shields were. But Smash 4 was a regression from Brawl, which, while itself a regression from Melee, was still generally well balanced on both sides. It's a shame that Meta Knight's dominance of the meta, as merited as the criticism is, causes people to write the game off, because Brawl's neutral and combo game
or even outright ban him. I want to nerf Meta Knight because I think Meta Knight's still a pretty sick character and a lot of the player base plays Meta Knight, so outright banning him, I feel like kind of hurt the scene. Yeah, nerf Meta Knight. Surgically use rules to nerf Meta Knight. I think would be very, very good for the game.
games,
This guy is also he thinks very similarly to like how I feel, so I really like this guy's video. Again, I think the one thing that I think that we kind of disagreed on was the hit stun canceling mechanics. I'm fine with them in here, but he wants to nerf them. But it's fine. Everything else I've kind of agreed with him, so.
on Meta Knight top tiers was quite deep. One thing Melee and Brawl hold in common is a plethora of moves that possess a certain combination of speed, power, and range, sometimes all at once, some of which can be meta-defining. Melee Fox's Frame 1 Reflector is possibly the most notorious example, being an excellent shield pressure option and the opener to many of his combos and tech chases, in addition to being a deadly offstage finisher thanks to its horizontal knockback. Brawl has stuff like Snake's up tilt, or all of his tilts, his up smash that is one of the few smash attacks to generate a projectile, a mortar shell that flies higher the more you charge the move. There's Falco's down air, a frame 5 move that meteor
I'm
smashes
confused if
opponents.
he's trying to list like broken moves or like creative moves, because like Snake's up smash was not a broken move at all. It's a really cool creative concept. At the time, there was like no smash attacks that were projectiles until Brawl, I think. I don't think there were any melee that I could think of. Um, but yeah, Melee Fox's Shine is obviously a broken move. You can name a lot of broken moves from just Meta Knight, so
And a safe neutral poke option. DDD's back air can beat out almost anything, and is only held back by his slow airspeed and the fact that he uses it so much it takes up a few slots in the staleness queue. If Brawl had received post-release support, I expect they would have gone out of their way to nerf these options and then some. That is, after all, exactly what they spent 2 years doing following Smash 4's release. Here's the thing, Brawl was fine with these hitboxes. Because of how little shield stun there was, it made sense that characters would have moves with larger hitboxes, that, if spaced well, could keep them safe from retaliation. And with how much damage characters like Marth, Falco, DDD, and most of all Ice Climbers could get off a grab, it paid to have hitboxes that let you threaten the opponent while keeping some distance. There's also the fact that Brawl had a much stronger projectile game, thanks to, among other things, the fact that characters could auto-cancel their projectiles if used in a short hop, which gave yet another option to threaten and pressure opponents without opening oneself up to shield-related retaliation. Meta Knight isn't unique in that he has crazy moves. He just has an
oh, he has
unusual
crazy moves.
concentration of them. Smash 4 is in one respect a better balance.
What do you say?
Has an
I don't know what he
unusual
means by
concentration
that.
of
Like
them.
a lot of them.
Smash
Like his moves are crazy. So I'm confused what he's saying here.
4 is in one respect a better balanced game in this regard. The only move that even comes close to the crap you see in Brawl is
I
Sheik's
guess he's
forward
saying
air.
like a lot of characters have broken moves, and Meta Knight has broken moves, but he just has more broken moves. So I don't know.
And unsurprisingly, that was nerfed more than once across the game's lifespan. But even then, it's unmatched in its combination of speed, range, and an auto-cancel on frame 11, in a game where characters usually have to wait more than 30 frames to auto-cancel an aerial. It was the cornerstone of her metagame. Every match involving a Sheik had her string this move together and combo into it off her grab and tilts. There's something to be said that pursuing perfect character balance is a fool's errand, that perhaps the only result that can be attained is a game with extremely bland and one-dimensional characters. Brawl's hitboxes led to some balance issues, the same way that you...
Imagine if they were patching Brawl, right? Like, if Brawl, like, patches were in Brawl, and they weren't doing, like, crazy universal changes, like, to make it like Smash 4. So, like, things they would change, like, they would nerf Midnight's Tornado, obviously, Shuttle Loop, obviously, and they'd probably buff some of the low tiers. But, like, at the end of the day, it'd still be, like, you'd still be playing, like, Brawl, like, what people enjoy playing with in Brawl, like, the system, the neutral, the advantage and disadvantage states, the ledge game. So, I feel like that would be way more interesting than a game like Smash 4, where yeah, they balanced it, but again, they removed so much depth. Like, again, there's ways to balance the game without removing as much depth.
Could argue that Melee's Fox Reflector and Falco Downer are moves that are just too good. But personally, I find that stuff is fun to play against and gives the game a sense of character. Especially when the characters are deep enough to allow you to mix and match their different options. When I play Brawl Falco, I prefer getting up close and personal, using his jab, down air, and back air to box with opponents. But someone else might prefer to shut down the other player with lasers, frustrating them into using an unsafe option that leaves them taking more than 40% from a chain throw. Brawl may have had only 39 characters compared to the more than 80 in Ultimate, but of those 39 characters, a good portion of them had options that you could explore. Melee has just 26, of whom anywhere from 7 to 12 can be tournament viable, depending on who you ask. And even within the top tier, people are still pushing their characters to the limit to this day. Part of the negative perception surrounding Brawl comes from the reality that it is more fun to play than it is to watch. A game like Melee and to a lesser
That's
extent
true.
Ultimate.
Like, especially if you're not familiar with Brawl, like watching Brawl when you're not familiar with the game can be kind of boring. When you're more familiar with the game and like you know what the other people are thinking and you can kind of see how smart like a top player is, it becomes like way more fun to watch. So yeah, Brawl's like not the best spectator game. Like I said, there are ways we could make it more spectator friendly. Like I said, two stocks, and trying to get more character diversity, with making the top tier characters more balanced among each other. So yeah.
Are faster paced and more visually exciting, especially with the insane movement options and freeform combos of the former. Even Smash 4 is arguably a better spectator sport than Brawl, but I
Yeah, for
didn't
sure.
make
I
this
think Smash.
video to
I love watching
evaluate the
Smash 4.
merits
I
in that
love watching
regard,
people get like
but to
bullshitted
examine.
by the game's mechanic. I've been bullshitted by the game, and I'm like, I want other people to feel my pain. So I did enjoy watching Smash 4. I like watching top level brawl play like way more. Um, just because again I feel like I can kind of get in the mindset of the players I'm watching. I'm like, oh wow, that was a super smart option, and I really like watching um like these. I really like watching like the high tier matchups, not like top tiers, but like the high tier characters. So like um Pikachu versus like Zerasu, or Wario versus Falco, or Falco versus Snake, or Marth. Marth versus like anyone. Marth is super fun to watch. So I think like I can understand like if you get tired of watching Meta Knight, versus Meta Knight, or Meta Knight versus Ice Climbers, or Meta Knight versus whoever. But the like but even those games can be like really cool to watch. At top level.
But I didn't make this video to evaluate the merits in that regard, but to examine the gameplay on its own merit and show that Brawl, for all its flaws, still had a lot
Brawl
going
had so
for
much
it.
character, man. Like so much charm to the game.
I know that Brawl's perception has undergone a bit of a shift in the last year or so, as people seem to be taking more interest in learning about it online and showcasing some of its more overlooked aspects. But I think it's interesting to ask
Yeah,
why only
the Brawl
now?
community, online Brawl community, could do a lot better job of capitalizing off this, but they don't.
And why did Brawl even gain a negative perception to begin with? Firstly, the competitive community's initial reception to the game was actually overall quite positive, despite how unfairly the Melee documentary depicted this, which in turn got
Wait,
parroted all
let me
over
go back.
forums by people who
Lose you.
had actually overall. The competitive community's initial reception to the game was actually overall quite positive, despite
Is it
how
talking like when the game
unfairly the
came out?
Melee
I guess.
documentary.
I don't know. I feel like Melee players were kind of hating on the game pretty quickly, like in 2008. Like it became like I feel like there was like kind of like almost like a one-sided war against Brawl, or Brawl and Melee. Because I don't, not, Brawl players weren't really talking about like how lame Melee was. Like you wouldn't really hear that too much. Like, but you'd hear Melee players talk about how lame Brawl was. Brawl players were more like, well, Melee has this problem too. Like Melee players would be like, your game is dominated by Meta Knight, and we'd be like, yeah, but your game's dominated by Fox, right? Which at the time, like he was very Melee's more Fox was more dominant than he is right now. Um, so it was a little bit more fair of a comparison. But Melee players would be like, oh well, Melee Fox is actually really sick. Brawl Meta Knight is not. Um, so I don't know.
Depicted this, which in turn got parroted all over forums by people who had just joined the scene in 2013.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
was
Like these are
quite a bit of
these people that you're talking about. They're good. There's like these are like your average college dorm people that just play Smash in their dorm. Like, I'm the best out of all the people in my dorm. I'm just playing 1v1 Fox only. I'm the best at my school or whatever. So
of history being rewritten. A shame considering the rest of that series was solid. It's really important to remember that Brawl had a competitive scene that was larger than Melee's for quite a few years following its release. There's also the factor of bad timing.
I don't know
While
what the
Brawl
point
had
of
the
that
advantage of
is, because the newer game's always going to be like more explosive at the beginning. So I don't know what he's trying to say. Like, is he trying to say like Brawl was seen as like a cooler game at one point? Because I'm not even sure if that was really true, to be honest.
releasing on a highly successful console, a huge advantage over Smash 4, Brawl released several years too early to ride the wave of streaming spearheaded by Twitch. Smash
That's
4
true
reaped
too.
the benefits of that trend. Especially after all the work I've put into this video, I can't overstate just how difficult it is to source footage from the early Brawl days. It's difficult to find VODs with passable video quality, let alone ones with commentary. Also, where the hell are the
Shoutouts to
ice
Clash
climbers?
tournaments.
Did I just make a Brawl retrospective not even mentioning them? It's a thorny issue that has led to the perception of Brawl being ruined by the unholy duo of Meta Knight and the Climbers. But that's actually quite unfair to the ice climbers. I'm sure you've seen the clips of them utterly annihilating the cast with their zero death chain throws. That's really about the only thing they had going for them. They had awful mobility across the board, terrible aerial attacks,
I don't know
terrible
if this is true. Like what he said. Yeah, he had not. They didn't have good area mobility. Um, but like even if you take out the chain grabs, they're still gonna be like a pretty solid character, I think. Well, let's say the infinite chain grab to death, right? Like, they're still gonna be a pretty solid character, better than a lot of the like mid tiers and stuff.
traction that made it hard for them to punish out of the shield with a grab. And if the partner dies, then the kill combo becomes a non factor. Not to mention, they had an awful recovery. In a game where all
Awful
the
recovery.
top and high
Not
tiers
together. He's not. He's not talking about so. I don't think Ice Climber's recovery is awful like at all. There's a lot of nuance you can use with Squall Hammer. A lot of like you can like wiggle it and make it really deceptive. So
had great projectiles barring Meta Knight, and where fast aerial attacks dominated the meta, they stood no chance. If it weren't for that very same Meta Knight himself. In the early Brawl days, most rule sets had a longer list of legal stages, such as Rainbow Cruise. Remember what I said about the Ice Climbers having awful mobility and pretty bad aerial attacks? They sucked on stages that emphasized movement and jumping, like Rainbow Cruise and Brinstar. But those same stages were the ones that accentuated Meta Knight's strengths even further. The most
that's true.
straightforward
So like the
countermeasure
thing with
was to
stages and Brawl, like I feel like Rainbow Cruise is a fine stage overall to play on. Um, Besides the fact that Midnight would be super dominant there. Um, the problem with Rainbow Cruise, like in like if it was in Smash 4 or like in Ultimate, is I feel like in those games there's just so many variables that you have to account for that you can die at such an early percent. Like in Smash 4, namely because of rage. So yeah, like I mean I remember we played on Delfino and Halberd a little bit at the very beginning of Smash 4, and like Diddy Kong like up throw up air would kill you at super early percent, and it just like kind of exasperated Smash 4's problem of like having the super easy bread and butter option that you can just die to like at any point. Um, that these stages kind of yeah, like I said, exasperated the problem. Where in Brawl, like it wasn't as big of a problem because you weren't like usually like the punish game was not as big, right? So you weren't going to die like at 0% from a lot of things. Like yeah, you can die at 0% on Rainbow Cruise because of whatever happened, right? But usually it's because your opponent um, played the stage well and like they had good stage knowledge. So I'm fine with like adding more stages. And if you don't like Rainbow Cruise, like you think that's too extreme, that's fine. But like there's like Delfino, love Delfino, Frigate, stages like those. I don't really have a problem with being legal when you take out when you take Meta Knight out of the equation.
simply ban him outright, which did eventually occur midway into the game's lifespan. But due to pressure from Meta Knight players and from non Meta Knight players who had become specialists in the matchup, that rule set didn't last. Tournament organizers unbanned Meta Knight and instead took to banning the stages that overly favored him. Of course, there was no universal consensus on
See, I
this,
think
but in the game,
what would have helped the game is if we had banned all these stages sooner, though, and kind of realized the issue was really Meta Knight, because Meta Knight players would be like, why are we banning Meta Knight when we haven't even tried banning the stages? I'm like, okay, sure, that's fair to say, I guess. So I feel like we should have just banned the stages way earlier. Realized that Meta Knight was indeed the problem, um, or indeed still the problem, and then I think people would have come to the realization that Meta Knight should have been banned or whatever a lot sooner.
game's later years, there was a growing trend to limit the number of legal stages, with the main reason given being Meta Knight's dominance on the counter picks. And that was something that indirectly benefited the Ice Climbers. Meta Knight's best stages happened to be their worst stages. Had Meta Knight been less excessive as a character, then there's a very real chance that the Ice Climbers would in turn have been significantly worse off. And we can look to Melee for an idea of
I
how
still
that
I
would
think
turn
Ice
out.
Climbers is like
Even before
even without
wobbling
Meta
was
Knight,
banned in
and even
Melee,
when you add
the
these
Ice
stages,
Climbers
they're still the best character in the game. Um, because you can use your bands. Like the most extreme stages, realistically, probably would be like Rainbow Cruise and Burnstar. And back in the day, we played with two bands, so they used both their bands on Rainbow Cruise Burnstar. And like you can take them, okay, to Halberd or to Delfino, but they're also fine on those stages. Delfino is still pretty scary a lot of the times because there's a lot of walk-offs, and they have you can just solo down throw chain grab people across the stage to kill them with walk-offs. Um, um, so like yeah, those stages are like not auto wins on Ice Climbers at all. And they're probably still winning on most matchups there. But yeah, some characters would be able to fight them better. But I think Ice Climbers would still be the best character in the game, even with all those stages.
were a relatively niche high tier character. The exploit that allowed them to zero death the opponent wasn't nearly powerful enough to upset the meta and catapult them to the top of the list.
I think if Ice
So,
Climbers
how have the
Wobbling was still in
long
the
held
game,
perception
I think they would have kept rising on the melee tier list. I'm not a melee player though, so
of
take my
Brawl
word
held up?
with
With
the grain of
everything I've
salt.
showed in this video, the problems posed by random tripping and hit stun cancelling have been hugely exaggerated. What remains true, however, is that Meta Knight almost single-handedly ruins an otherwise good game. But whereas Bayonetta in Smash 4 was designed to be a combo-oriented
So
character
let me also
in
let
a
me go
game
back
that
to melee.
otherwise
Like
worked
people
really
ban
hard to
wobbling in
limit
melee because
combos,
it just was not fun to play against. Like it wasn't like the most overpowered thing. Melee ice climbers were not like dominating the meta or anything like that. It was just a really frustrating aspect of the game. So they just banned it. But they're like, okay, people don't like this, so we're just going to ban this mechanic, right? I feel like you could say the same thing about Brawl Ice Climbers. Like, okay, getting grabbed at 0 and dying off of it is just not a fun thing to play against. So let's just get rid of it. Um, let's just ban it. So I feel like that is all also very fair to say. Like that Ice Climbers. A lot of people would say Ice Climbers is more toxic than Meta Knight just because they're not as fun to play against. Um, it's subjective though. So, but I think there is a case for that there.
Meta Knight won Brawl because he had more Brawl in him than the other Brawl characters. I think the most interesting discussion that Brawl can spark is just how much balance is needed and at what point it becomes self-defeating. Because as it stands, I would much rather watch a Meta Knight Ditto or a Meta Knight match versus anyone in Brawl over any of the Smash 4 matchups. For the same reason I would watch Melee Fox do anything over whatever Smash 4 has to offer.
Again, I enjoy watching Smash 4, so I just like watching people get bullshitted in that game. Top level Meta Knight was really sick to watch too, though. So, oh, so yeah, game is, or video is done. Yeah, that was a really good video. I really enjoyed it, but yeah, I think Ice Climbers, he should have featured Ice Climbers more. They were definitely like a big problem of the game. Um, it's part of the reason why Diddy is, I think, is a really good character because I think Diddy loses to most of the top and high tier characters. But because his matchup spread against Meta Knight and Ice Climbers is decently solid, he um he ends up being better than like Almar and Falco, who get destroyed by Ice Climbers. I think both Almar and Falco probably have a better matchup against Meta Knight than Diddy. Maybe not Falco, but I don't know. I feel like it's been so long since we've seen like a really top level Falco on Larry and Masha's level that maybe I'm forgetting how well Falco does against Meta Knight. I don't think. But I do think that because Diddy does so well against those two characters. When I say well, I think they're still losing, but it's better than like the previous characters I said. They ended up being better than them. So yeah, Ice Climbers was also kind of a meta defining character at the end of Brawl's lifespan. Um, yeah, I agreed with so much in this video. I think it was a really good video. So I don't know, dishonorable Daimyo. What other games do they have over here? Is this guy? What the? He's not even plays. He's not even making like a Smash content creator. I don't even know what game this is. But it was a really good video. I don't know how involved this guy is in the community, or like if he played Brawl. I know he said he played Meta Knight or in Smash 4, but I don't know how much Brawl he's played. I'll give it a like though. That was a very good video that I enjoyed watching a lot of. Um, I don't know if there is anything else to say. I'm trying to think. Oh, is there anything that this guy missed? He could have talked about other top tier characters in general, more high tier top tier characters that weren't just Meta Knight. Um, everything you said about Meta Knight was very true, but maybe he could have featured some of the other characters a little bit more. Because like the Diddy part, it was just a little snippet. The Almar was kind of a little snippet. So I'm wondering if he could have talked about that more. Um, what else? Maybe you could have talked about stages more, like having a hazards off option in Brawl could have been like a really cool option to have more stages because the starter stages, Meta Knight dominates a lot of the starter stages. Um, like Battlefield, uh, Meta Knight's really dominant on Battlefield. What else? I feel like he covered most of it. Lux, one of those competitive Brawl players. Yeah, I knew Lux would probably agree with a lot of the stuff he said in the IC section. But I don't know. I think I kind of disagree with Lux on how good Ice Climbers is with all the other stages on when you use your bands well. Huh. I feel like I'm forgetting something that he could have talked about. Maybe he could have talked about RCO lag, but I guess that just only applies to a handful of characters. RCO lag was a really shitty mechanic in Brawl. Other shitty mechanics I really don't like in Brawl. There's not too many of them. I would have liked in Brawl like a good way to get onto a platform besides just platform canceling, like on Battlefield, like a waveland option. That could have been cool. Um, Maybe you could have talked about the spectator aspect of it. I'm curious what this guy like if he because he had a really good analysis of Brawl stuff. I wonder what his like if he would have a different proposed rule set for Brawl. Like I said, I would want two stocks. I think that could have been a lot better for Brawl. They could kind of just tone down the length of the matches mostly. Um, I wonder if he would have any rule set changes that he would go and apply for Meta Knight and Ice Climbers. I guess at the end, maybe it kind of sounded like he might be a proponent for a bigger stage list if we had gotten rid of Meta Knight. But what else? I feel like that's mostly it. I might just wrap up the video here. Um, yeah, I think I'm just gonna wrap up the video here. But shoutouts to this guy, really good video. I liked it, right? Yeah, liked it. All right, see you guys.